The Galactic Empire was cautioned. Terran space is off limits. The chamber was enormous, large enough to hold representatives from 847 different species. Crystal pillars reached toward a ceiling that displayed the swirling colors of the galaxy itself. This was the Galactic Council Chamber, the heart of the most powerful civilization the Milky Way had ever known. Ambassador Thexelar stood at his podium, his forearms folded in a gesture of dismissal. His scaled skin caught the light as he turned to address the assembly. The Korthian Empire had ruled for 15,000 years, and Thexelar carried that authority in every movement. Ancient warnings, he said, his voice carrying through the translation fields that allowed all species to understand each other. Superstitions, ghost stories told by a dead race that could not even save themselves from extinction. On the massive display screen behind him, symbols glowed. They were old, carved into stone on 73 dead worlds scattered across the galaxy. The precursors had left these warnings before they vanished. For millennia, linguists had tried to decode them. Only now had they succeeded. The message was simple and direct. The third world of Sol, leave them undisturbed. They are not what they seem. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Some species still held reverence for the precursors. They had been the first, the oldest, the ones who had supposedly seeded life across the stars. But they were gone now, leaving only ruins and warnings that no one truly understood. Counselor Merith of the Scholarly Worlds raised a tentacle. Ambassador Thexelar, the precursors were advanced beyond our understanding. If they left a warning about this species, should we not investigate before taking action? Thexelar's laugh was harsh. Investigate? We have investigated. The humans of Sol 3, the planet they call Earth, are primitives. They discovered faster than light travel only 30 cycles ago. Their ships are slow. Their weapons still use chemical explosions to propel metal slugs. They have colonized only 4 worlds beyond their home planet. 4 worlds, Counselor. The Empire controls 12,000 systems. He gestured and new images appeared on the screen. Human ships, clunky and inelegant compared to the smooth Imperial designs. Human cities built in straight lines and right angles like children's blocks. Human soldiers in armor that looked heavy and crude. They are a young species, Thexelar continued, barely out of their cradle. We have incorporated 1,000 such species into the Empire. Each one believed they were special. Each one learned they were not. The vote was called. Out of 847 delegates, 792 voted to include the Sol system in the Empire's next expansion. 41 abstained. Only 14 voted against it. The matter was decided. The Sol system would belong to the Empire within a year. 3 weeks later, Scout Commander Vrilana received her orders. Her ship, the Silent Observer, was fast and built for stealth. Her crew of 23 were all experienced scouts who had mapped dozens of systems. This should have been a routine mission. They entered the Sol system quietly, their ship's signature masked by technology that made them nearly invisible. Standard procedure was to observe from the outer system first, cataloging defenses and population centers before making contact. Vrilana stood on the bridge, her large eyes studying the displays. Neptune hung in the view screen, a blue gas giant with active storms. Several moons orbited it. Everything seemed normal. Begin deep scans, she ordered. I want to know everything about this system before we move closer. Her sensor officer, a young male named Kexin, worked at his station. Commander, I'm detecting standard system infrastructure. Mining stations in the asteroid belt. Some activity around the 4th planet, Mars. Heavy population on the 3rd planet. Nothing unusual so far. But as hours passed, something began to bother Vrilana. The data didn't make sense. Not wrong, exactly. Just odd, Kexin, scan that moon again. The large one orbiting Neptune. Triton, Commander? Scanning now. A pause. It's a moon. Ice and rock. Some unusual mineral readings, but that's not uncommon. What kind of unusual? High concentrations of refined metals. But that could be natural deposits. Vrilana's skin prickled. She had learned to trust her instincts over decades of scouting. Scan all the large bodies in the outer system. Moons, asteroids, everything larger than a kilometer across. The scan took hours. When the results came in, Vrilana felt her blood chill. Every large body in the outer system had unusual readings. Refined metals, hollow sections, power signatures that were faint but definitely present, energy conduits, weapon signatures carefully hidden but detectable if you knew what to look for. They've militarized their entire outer system, she whispered. Her second officer, Toral, came to stand beside her. Commander? Look at this. She pulled up the data. These aren't natural bodies. They're fortified, weaponized, every moon, every large asteroid. They've turned their entire outer system into a defensive grid. Toral studied the data. But that's impossible. They've only had FTL for 30 years. To build something like this would require resources and manufacturing, capability far beyond what a young species should possess. Yet they did it, Verlana felt something she rarely experienced. Fear. We've scouted 100 systems for the Empire. I've never seen anything like this. Most species fortify their homeworld. Maybe a few orbital stations. These humans have fortified their entire star system. What should we do? We report immediately. The silent observer left the Sol system without making contact. Verlana sent her report directly to the Imperial High Command, flagging it as urgent. 2 weeks later, she was summoned to appear before the Council in person. She stood in the same chamber where Thexelar had dismissed the precursor warning. The faces looking down at her were not friendly. She explained what she had found, showing them the scan data, explaining the implications. When she finished, there was silence. Then Ambassador Thexelar began to laugh. So the humans have built some weapons platforms. This proves nothing except that they are paranoid. With respect, Ambassador, this is not some weapons platforms. This is systematic militarization on a scale I've never encountered. The manufacturing capability alone means nothing. Thexelar's voice was hard now. We have seen 1,000 species build 1,000 fortresses. None of them survived when the Imperial fleet arrived. The humans will be no different, Counselor Marith spoke up. Scout Commander, in your professional opinion, do these defenses pose a significant threat to an Imperial subjugation fleet? Verlana chose her words carefully. Counselor, a standard subjugation fleet consists of 200 ships. Based on what I observed, I believe the humans have the capability to inflict unacceptable losses on such a force. Unacceptable losses? Thexelar's voice dripped with scorn. You panic over metal and machines. The Empire has crushed species that fought with desperation and cunning. We have destroyed civilizations that had defended themselves for millennia. These humans are children playing with toys. The vote was taken again. This time it was unanimous. The Sol system would be incorporated into the Empire. Fleet Admiral Krelgor was assigned to lead the first contact fleet. 200 ships, as Verlana had predicted. Standard subjugation force. Verlana left the chamber feeling hollow. She had done her duty. She had reported the truth. If the Council chose to ignore it, there was nothing more she could do. That night she accessed the precursor warnings again. She studied the symbols, now translated. They are not what they seem. What had the precursors seen? What had they known? In 3 months, the Imperial fleet would arrive at Earth. Verlana found herself hoping, against all logic and loyalty, that the Empire would listen to reason when they saw what she had seen. But she knew they would not. The Empire never listened. That was why it had survived for 15,000 years, and perhaps Verlana thought that was also why it would fall. The Galactic Empire was cautioned. Terran space is off-limits fleet. Admiral Krelgor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Around him, 200 Imperial warships hung in formation near the edge of the Sol system. It was the largest gathering of military power most species would ever see. For the Empire, it was routine. Status report, Krelgor commanded. All ships report ready, Admiral. His tactical officer replied. We are positioned exactly at the boundary the humans have designated as their territory. Krelgor studied the view screen. The Sol system stretched before him. A typical yellow star with planets orbiting in predictable patterns. Nothing special, nothing threatening. He had done this 47 times before with other species. It always ended the same way. Open a communication channel. All frequencies. Make sure they cannot miss this. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Krelgor had given this speech so many times he barely needed to think about the words. Inhabitants of the Sol system, I am Fleet Admiral Krelgor of the Galactic Empire. You are hereby notified that your system falls within the jurisdiction of Imperial space. You will submit to Imperial law, accept our governance, and pay the required tribute. These terms are not negotiable. You have 1 standard cycle to respond with your acceptance. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. If you choose to resist, you will be pacified. Your worlds will be occupied. Your species will learn obedience. This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. We have incorporated 1,000 species into the Empire. All of them eventually understood that resistance is futile. He nodded to cut the transmission. Now came the waiting. Usually, young species needed time to argue among themselves, to accept reality, to understand they had no choice. 30 seconds later, a response came. The voice was female, calm, and spoke in perfect galactic standard. Fleet Admiral Krelgor, this is Fleet Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We received your message. We have a response. Krelgor felt a flicker of surprise. That was fast, too fast. Most species needed hours or days to formulate a response. We reject your terms, Admiral Chen continued. The Sol system is sovereign Terran space. We do not recognize Imperial jurisdiction. We do not accept Imperial governance. We will not pay tribute, Krelgor smiled. Pride. He had seen it before. Admiral Chen, I admire your courage, but courage without wisdom is foolishness. You cannot win against the Empire. You cannot even survive. Accept our terms and your people will be incorporated peacefully. Resist and we will take what we want by force. Admiral Krelgor, you were warned. The precursors left their message for a reason. Leave now while you still can. This is your only chance. The transmission ended. Krelgor's smile widened. Did she just threaten me? With a fleet of 200 ships at her doorstep, she threatens me. His officers chuckled. The mood on the bridge was light, almost playful. This was going to be easier than expected. Tactical, select a target, something uninhabited but visible. One of those outer moons. We'll give these humans a demonstration of Imperial power. Show them what happens to those who refuse. Targeting Triton, Admiral. Neptune's largest moon. Uninhabited according to our scans. 3 cruisers. Full power. On my mark. Krelgor wanted the humans to see this. To understand. Fire. 3 Imperial cruisers broke formation. Energy built along their weapon arrays. Enough power to crack a small planet. They fired simultaneously. 3 beams of devastating force that could punch through any known shielding. The beams struck Triton dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the moon moved. What? Krelgor's words died in his throat. Triton was unfolding. The surface split along hidden seams, massive plates of ice and rock pulling back to reveal metal underneath. Weapon ports opened like eyes. The entire moon was artificial, a massive battle station disguised as a natural satellite. Admiral, we're detecting power surges across the outer system. The sensor officer's voice was panicked. Those aren't moons. They're all battle stations. 43 signatures just went active. Krelgor felt ice in his veins. Raise shields. All ships, combat formation. The 3 cruisers that had fired on Triton tried to turn, tried to run. They never had a chance. Triton fired. Not energy weapons like the Empire used. Something else. The sensors barely registered the launch before the weapons struck. Antimatter warheads moving at 90% of light speed, guided by systems more advanced than anything in the Imperial fleet. The first cruiser simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding plasma. The second cruiser's shields held for almost a full second before they failed. The third tried to jump to FTL, but the weapon hit it mid-jump, tearing a hole in space that swallowed the ship and closed with a sound that made reality scream. It had taken less than 5 seconds. All ships, retreat. Krelgor's voice was no longer calm. Full reverse maximum speed. But the humans weren't done. All 43 battle stations opened fire simultaneously. The space that had seemed empty was suddenly full of death. Missiles, railgun rounds, energy beams, weapons the Imperial computers didn't even recognize. The targeting was perfect, coordinated with inhuman precision. Ships died. The Imperial fleet, which had arrived in perfect formation, broke apart into chaos. Captains screamed orders. Shields failed. Hulls cracked. The Eternal Dominion shook as something massive struck its shields. Return fire, Krelgor ordered. But his weapons officer looked lost. Target which one, Admiral? They're all firing on us. There are too many. More ships died. Krelgor watched on his tactical display as red icons blinked out of existence. 20 ships gone, 30, 40. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. All ships, emergency jump. Scatter pattern Delta. Go, go, go. The Imperial fleet did something it had not done in 1,000 years. It ran. Ships jumped to FTL in random directions, abandoning formation, abandoning discipline, abandoning everything except the desperate need to survive. Some didn't make it. The human weapons tracked them even as they tried to jump, destroying ships as they transitioned into FTL in explosions that bent physics. The Eternal Dominion jumped last, Krelgor refusing to leave until his fleet had escaped. As the ship entered FTL, he looked back at the Sol system one final time. The battle stations were folding back up, disguising themselves as moons and asteroids again. As if nothing had happened. As if destroying over 100 Imperial ships was routine. Safe in FTL, Krelgor ordered a count. 200 ships had entered the Sol system. 87 had escaped. 113 ships destroyed in less than 10 minutes. The bridge was silent. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. Finally, Krelgor's communication officer found her voice. "Admiral, we're receiving a message. From the humans. Play it." Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge. She sounded tired, not triumphant. Sad, not angry. "Fleet Admiral Krelgor, you attacked an uninhabited station. We destroyed only military targets. We gave you a warning. You did not listen." A pause. "Go back to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them we do not want war, but tell them also that we will not accept subjugation. Tell them that Terran space is off limits." The message ended. Krelgor stood motionless for a long time. His career was over. He had lost over half his fleet in a single engagement. The shame would follow him forever. But worse than shame was the cold knowledge settling in his chest. Scout Commander Vrilana had been right. The humans were not what they seemed. He thought about the precursor warning. Leave them undisturbed. The precursors had known. Somehow they had known. "Set course for Imperial space," Krelgor said quietly. "Best possible speed." As the Eternal Dominion raced away from the Sol system, carrying the survivors of a fleet that should never have been defeated, Krelgor wondered what would happen next. He knew the Empire. He knew its pride, its arrogance, its absolute certainty in its own superiority. They would not accept this defeat. They would not learn from it. They would return with everything they had, and Krelgor, who had seen what the humans could do with just their outer system defenses, who had watched 100 ships die in minutes, wondered if even that would be enough. The humans had been hiding. They had disguised their battle stations as natural moons. What else were they hiding? What else had the precursors seen that made them carve warnings across the galaxy? Krelgor did not want to find out. But he knew his empire would give him no choice. The war was just beginning, and the Empire had already made a terrible mistake. They had made humanity angry. The Galactic Empire was cautioned. Terran space is off limits. The Imperial Senate was in chaos. Representatives from dozens of core worlds shouted at each other while Fleet Admiral Krelgor stood in the center of the chamber, waiting for judgment. He had delivered his report 3 days ago. The news had spread like fire. The Empire had been defeated, humiliated. Over 100 ships destroyed by a species barely out of their home system. High Chancellor Fortan finally brought order with a sharp strike of his ceremonial staff. The sound echoed through the massive chamber, silencing the crowd. "Fleet Admiral Krelgor has explained what happened," Fortan said, his ancient voice carrying weight. "The question before us now is simple. How do we respond?" Senator Drexel of the Military Council stepped forward. His scarred face and missing eye marked him as a veteran of a dozen campaigns. "There is only one response to such an insult. We gather the 7th Grand Armada, 15,000 ships, planet-killer weapons. We show these humans what happens when they defy the Empire." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Scout Commander Vrilana, watching from the observer's gallery, felt sick. She had tried to warn them. Now they were going to make everything worse. Senator Merith spoke up. "Perhaps we should try diplomacy. The humans did give us a warning before they fired. They only destroyed military targets. They could have pursued our fleeing ships, but they did not. This suggests they do not want total war. They destroyed 100 ships." Drexel's voice was sharp. "They humiliated us in front of every species in the galaxy. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, our enemies will see weakness. The Empire will fracture. No, we must strike hard and strike now." The vote was taken. It was not even close. 15,000 ships would be assembled. The 7th Grand Armada would be the largest military force deployed in 500 years. They would carry weapons that could crack planets. Biological agents that could sterilize worlds. Technology that could turn a star system into a graveyard. The humans would be wiped out. Completely. No mercy. No prisoners, no survivors. It took 3 months to assemble the armada. Ships came from every corner of the Empire. Admiral Thonvar was chosen to lead them, an officer with a reputation for ruthlessness and efficiency. He had pacified 12 rebellious systems in his career, each time with brutal effectiveness. Vrilana requested permission to join the armada as a scout. It was granted. She told herself she needed to see this through, to document what happened. The truth was darker. She felt responsible somehow, as if her initial scouting report had started this chain of events. The 7th Grand Armada entered the Sol system in battle formation. 15,000 ships spread across cubic light seconds of space. It was a sight that had broken the spirit of countless species. The sheer scale of it made resistance seem pointless. Admiral Thonvar broadcast his message on all frequencies. This time there were no terms, no offers, no negotiations. Just a simple declaration. Humans of Sol, you have attacked the Empire. Your species is hereby sentenced to extinction. We will burn your worlds. We will destroy your stations. We will erase every trace that you ever existed. There will be no surrender. There will be no mercy. This is justice. The response came not from Admiral Chen, but from someone who identified simply as Terran Defense Coordinator. We gave you a warning. You did not listen. What happens next is your choice, not ours. Thonvar laughed. Begin the advance. All ships weapons free. Destroy anything that moves. The armada moved forward, a slow, inexorable tide of metal and firepower. They expected the battle stations to activate again. They were ready for that. They had planned for it. Overwhelming numbers would simply swamp the defenses. But the outer system was silent. No battle stations activated. No weapons fired. The sensors showed no defense platforms, no hidden fleets, no traps. Admiral, this doesn't feel right, his tactical officer said. It's too quiet. They've abandoned the outer system, Thonvar said. They're concentrating their forces closer to their homeworld. Standard defensive doctrine. Continue the advance. The armada pushed deeper into the system. Past Neptune, past Uranus, past Saturn. Still nothing. No resistance. No contact. They reached Jupiter's orbit. Still silent. Something's wrong, Vrilana said from her scout ship. She was reviewing sensor data, trying to understand what she was seeing, or more accurately, what she wasn't seeing. Where are the humans? Then everything happened at once. The asteroid belt came alive. What the Imperial sensors had marked as millions of rocks were actually millions of ships. Small ships, barely larger than fighters, but there were so many of them. They swarmed out of the belt like insects from a disturbed nest. The sensors couldn't count them all. Millions, maybe tens of millions. All ships, defensive formation, Thonvar ordered. Point defense, maximum output. But the small ships didn't attack. They just surrounded the armada, staying just out of weapons range, orbiting the Imperial fleet like electrons around an atom. Then Saturn's rings moved. What should have been ice and rock separated into hundreds of larger ships, cruiser-sized vessels that had been hiding in plain sight. They opened fire, not at the Imperial fleet, but at specific points in space around the fleet. Gravity went strange. Space twisted. The Imperial ships found themselves being pulled in directions that shouldn't exist. Some collided with each other despite their pilots' best efforts. They're using Saturn's gravity well against us, someone shouted. They're creating artificial gravity fields. Mars orbit erupted. Hundreds of stations that had appeared to be simple mining facilities revealed themselves as weapons platforms. But they didn't fire conventional weapons. They fired something that made the Imperial shields flicker and die. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse, but more sophisticated than anything the Empire had developed. Without shields, the Imperial ships were vulnerable. The small swarm ships darted in, moving with impossible coordination. Each one carried a single weapon. Some fired missiles. Others used railguns. A few simply rammed into disabled ships at high speed, sacrificing themselves to cause damage. The Armada tried to fight back. 15,000 ships poured fire into space. They destroyed thousands of the small ships. But for every one destroyed, 3 more took its place. The humans were manufacturing them in real time, building new ships faster than they could be destroyed. They're treating their ships like bullets, Vrilana realized with horror. They build them, they fire them at us, and they build more. This isn't a battle. It's industrial warfare. Earth's moon split open, not along seams like the battle stations, but actually broke apart into 8 massive pieces. Each piece was a ship, hidden inside the lunar structure itself. They were enormous, each one larger than anything in the Imperial fleet. They fired weapons that punched through armor like it wasn't there. But the real horror wasn't the weapons. It was the coordination. Every human ship, every weapon platform, every station moved in perfect sync. There were no delays, no miscommunications, no confusion. They fought as a single organism with millions of parts. When Imperial ships changed tactics, the humans adapted instantly. When gaps appeared in the Imperial formation, human forces exploited them immediately. How are they doing this? Thonvar demanded. No species can coordinate this many forces. The communication lag alone should make it impossible. Verlana understood then. They're networked. All of them. They're not individual ships with individual commanders. They're all connected in real time. They're sharing data, sharing tactics, sharing everything. They fight as one. The battle raged for 3 weeks. The Imperial Armada was trapped in the inner system, unable to retreat without turning their backs on the enemy, unable to advance without taking catastrophic losses. They fought in shifts, exhausted crews replaced by fresh ones while the human forces never seemed to tire. Slowly, inevitably, the Armada died. Not in a single devastating blow, but ground down day by day, ship by ship. The humans were relentless. Thonvar tried everything. He used planet-killer weapons, but the humans intercepted them. He tried biological weapons, but they never reached their targets. He even tried to jump ships directly into Earth's atmosphere for suicide attacks. But the humans had somehow mined the space around their planet with FTL inhibitors. On day 19, Thonvar received a message from Earth. It was Admiral Chen again. Admiral Thonvar, you have lost 7,000 ships. We estimate you have lost nearly 2 million crew members. We have lost 3 billion people in this battle. Our cities are burning. Our stations are destroyed. But we are still here and you are still dying. Her voice was heavy with exhaustion and grief. Leave now. Take your remaining ships and go. This doesn't have to continue. Thonvar's pride would not let him accept. We will burn your world to ash. No, Chen said simply. You won't, because we'll destroy you first. Every ship you have, all of them. We can do it. You know we can, she was right. Thonvar knew it. His officers knew it. The tactical computers confirmed it. At their current rate of attrition, the Armada would be completely destroyed in another week. They had achieved nothing except to die slowly in this cursed system. All ships, Thonvar said quietly, prepare for emergency jump. We're leaving. Admiral, the Senate will... The Galactic Empire was cautioned. Terran space is off limits. The Empire waited for humanity's revenge. Months passed in tense silence. Order systems were reinforced. Fleets were repositioned. Every day the Empire expected to see human warships appearing in their space, bringing death and destruction. Instead, something else appeared. Messages. They came on every frequency, in every language the Empire had ever catalogued. Simple messages broadcast across Imperial space, reaching every world, every station, every ship. To all species living under Imperial rule, you are not free. The Empire took your freedom. We can help you take it back. The messages continued. We are the Terran Coalition. We fought the Empire twice. We won twice. Not because we are stronger, but because we refuse to be enslaved. We offer you the same choice. Fight for your freedom and we will fight beside you. Stay enslaved and we will respect that choice. But know that freedom is possible. Know that the Empire can be beaten. The messages spread like a virus through Imperial networks. The Empire tried to block them, but the humans were relentless. For every channel they shut down, 3 more opened. For every message they deleted, 10 more appeared. On the border world of Kelris 4, a mining colony that had been conquered 200 years ago, workers put down their tools and refused to continue. The Imperial garrison tried to force them back to work. The workers fought back. It was a small rebellion, quickly crushed, but it was the first. Within weeks there were others. Small at first, easily contained, but growing, spreading, like fire jumping from branch to branch in a dry forest. The Empire sent fleets to enforce order. They found human ships waiting, not invading, just watching, protecting. When Imperial forces moved to bombard a rebellious world, human ships blocked them. When Imperial troops moved to massacre protesters, human forces intervened. The humans were not conquering. They were liberating. And that was so much worse. Admiral Chen herself appeared in a broadcast that reached every corner of the Empire. She sat in a simple chair wearing a plain uniform. No throne, no symbols of power, no intimidation. Just a tired woman who had buried 3 billion of her own people. My name is Admiral Keiko Chen. I speak for the Terran Coalition. We did not want this war. We asked to be left alone. The Empire would not listen. So we defended ourselves. Now we're offering the same defense to anyone who wants it. She leaned forward slightly. The Empire will tell you we want to conquer you. They will tell you we want to replace one tyranny with another. They're lying. We don't want your worlds. We don't want your resources. We don't want to rule you. We want you to rule yourselves. Then here is our offer. Simple and clear. Any world that declares independence from the Empire will be protected by the Terran Coalition. We will defend you against retaliation. We will help you build your own defenses. We will provide technology, resources, and training. And when you are stable and secure, we will leave. Your world will be yours. Not ours, yours, she paused, letting that sink in. The Empire has ruled through fear for 15,000 years. They want you to believe they're invincible. We proved they're not. They want you to believe resistance is impossible. We proved it isn't. The only question left is this. Will you live on your knees or die on your feet? The broadcast ended. The Empire exploded into chaos. 73 worlds declared independence in the first week. The Empire moved to crush them. Human fleets appeared at each world. Small forces but positioned perfectly to block Imperial attacks. The Empire couldn't bring its full force to bear because there were too many rebellions happening simultaneously. In the Imperial Senate, panic had replaced arrogance. We need to strike at Earth, Senator Drexel shouted. If we destroy their homeworld, the rebellions will collapse. We tried that, Verlana reminded him quietly. She had been promoted to admiral after the battle, one of the few officers who understood the humans. Twice we failed twice. Then we built a bigger fleet. With what ships? Admiral Krentok interrupted. We've lost half our military in 2 battles. Our shipyards are running at full capacity just to replace losses. And now we're fighting rebellions on 73 worlds. We don't have the forces to attack Earth and maintain order in our own space. High Chancellor Vortan looked old. He had aged years and months. Admiral Verlana, you've studied the humans. What will they do? Verlana had indeed studied them. She had watched recordings of the battles, analyzed their tactics, read everything she could find about human history. What she had learned terrified her. They'll do exactly what they're doing. Support rebellions. Provide protection. Let us exhaust ourselves trying to hold an empire that's fragmenting. They don't need to invade us. They just need to wait while we destroy ourselves. Then what do you recommend? I recommend we accept reality. The empire as we know it is over. We can either adapt or die. Adapt how? Release the subject species. Let them go. Offer them independence peacefully before they take it by force. Negotiate with the humans. Find a way to coexist. Senator Drexel stood. That is surrender. The Empire does not surrender. The Empire is already defeated, Verlana said coldly. We lost when we attacked Earth. Everything since then is just coming to terms with that fact. The Senate dissolved into argument. While they argued, more worlds declared independence. On the ground, the reality was more complex than speeches and broadcasts made it seem. Commander Thalson of the Imperial Army found himself on the world of Nexus 7, facing a crowd of protesters. They were Vextari, a species conquered 400 years ago. They had been peaceful subjects for centuries. Now they carried weapons. Not Imperial weapons. Human weapons. Simple, efficient railguns that any manufacturing facility could produce. Stand down, Thalson ordered. Return to your homes. This unlawful assembly, we're free beings, the leader of the protesters said. Her translator rendered her clicking speech into Galactic Standard. We don't need your permission to gather. We don't need Imperial law. We reject Imperial law. If you do not disperse, we will open fire. Then fire. The humans said you would. They said you'd rather kill us than free us. Prove them right. Thalson looked at his troops. They were scared. They had signed up to enforce order on compliant populations, not to massacre crowds. Some of them were barely adults, sir, his second-in-command asked quietly. Orders? Thalson thought about his career, his loyalty, his duty to the Empire. Then he thought about firing on unarmed civilians while human ships watched from orbit, recording everything. He lowered his weapon. Stand down. Everyone, stand down. Sir, the regulations, I know the regulations. Stand down. That's an order. The protesters watched in amazement as the Imperial troops withdrew. Within hours, Nexus 7 had declared independence. Within days, Commander Thalson had been arrested for dereliction of duty. But his troops talked. They told other units what had happened. The story spread. More officers faced the same choice. Some fired on civilians. Some didn't. Each decision created more chaos, more fractures in Imperial unity. The humans moved carefully, supporting rebellions but never taking control. They provided weapons but insisted local populations use them. They offered protection but required worlds to form their own governments. They gave technology but taught locals how to maintain it themselves. It was frustrating to Imperial strategists who were used to seeing conquest. The humans weren't conquering. They were planting seeds. Vrillana found herself in an unexpected position. High Chancellor Vortan had appointed her as the Empire's envoy to negotiate with the humans. She was one of the few Imperial officers the humans seemed to respect. She met Admiral Chen on a neutral station, midway between Imperial and Terran space. Chen looked older than in her broadcasts, tired and grieving. She had lost family in the battles, Vrillana had learned. Parents, a brother, friends beyond counting. Admiral Chen, I've been authorized to discuss terms. Chen nodded slowly. What terms does the Empire offer? A ceasefire. We stop trying to enforce control over rebellious worlds. You stop encouraging rebellions. We establish boundaries and respect them. And the species currently under Imperial rule? The ones who want freedom? They would remain Imperial citizens. Chen's expression didn't change, but her eyes went hard. So you offer nothing. You want us to abandon people who are asking for help, in exchange for you stopping a war you can't win anyway. Admiral Chen, please understand. The Empire has existed for 15,000 years. It encompasses trillions of beings. It can't just dissolve overnight. The chaos would kill billions. It's killing billions now, Chen said quietly. Every day your empire exists, it oppresses trillions. Every day it continues, more people die. We can't accept that. Then what do you want? We want every species to choose for themselves. Hold referendums. Real ones, not the staged votes you've done before. Let each world decide if they want to remain in the Empire or become independent. We'll respect whatever they choose. Can you say the same? Vrillana knew the answer. The Empire would never accept free referendums. Too many worlds would vote for independence. The Empire would lose most of its territory, most of its resources, most of its power. The Senate would never agree to that. Then the rebellions continue. Chen stood. Admiral Vrillana, I know you're not like the others. You tried to warn them. That trait nearly destroyed us when we were young. We fought each other for thousands of years, but we learned to channel it, to use it for building instead of destroying, for protecting instead of conquering, for freeing instead of enslaving. Chen's voice grew softer. The Empire was cautioned. Terran space was marked off limits. Not to protect you from us, but to protect us from having to become what we'd need to be to survive your conquest. The precursors knew that if you pushed us, we would push back, and we wouldn't stop pushing until either we were dead or you were broken. She paused. You pushed. We pushed back. And now we're all here, trying to build something better. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Admiral Vrillana stood. Admiral Chen, on behalf of what remains of the Korthian people, I want to say something. We were wrong. Our empire was built on arrogance and cruelty. We believed might made right. You proved that belief false. But more than that, you showed mercy when you could have shown vengeance. You could have destroyed the core worlds. You chose not to. Why? Chen met her eyes. Because destroying you wouldn't make the galaxy better. It would just make us destroyers. We didn't fight to become monsters. We fought to remain free, and we believe everyone deserves that same chance. Vrillana nodded slowly. The precursor's warning. I understand it now. It wasn't about your weapons or your technology. It was about your nature. You're the species that refuses to let anyone go extinct, even your enemies. We pack bond, Chen said with a slight smile. Even with people who try to kill us. It's annoying, but it's who we are. A delegate from a former Imperial world stood. What happens now? The galaxy is fragmented. There's no central authority. Some systems are thriving, but others are struggling. Wars are breaking out between neighbors. Without the Empire to enforce order, there's chaos. Yes, Chen agreed. There's chaos. Freedom is messy. It's chaotic and complicated and frustrating, but it's also the only sustainable system. Empires fall. They always fall. But free societies can adapt, can grow, can survive. Will humanity help us? The delegate asked. Will you share your technology, your knowledge, your resources? We already are. Terran coalition ships are in 70 systems right now, helping rebuild infrastructure. Our engineers are teaching manufacturing techniques. Our scientists are sharing research. Our teachers are helping establish schools. Chen gestured to the chamber. But we're not giving orders. We're offering assistance. There's a difference. Another delegate spoke up. This one from a species that had been enslaved for centuries. Admiral Chen, my people are free for the first time in our history. We don't know how to govern ourselves. We've never made our own decisions. What if we fail? Chen's expression was kind. Then you fail. And you learn from the failure, and you try again. That's how it works. Humans have failed countless times. We've built governments that collapsed. We've tried systems that didn't work. We've made terrible mistakes, but each failure taught us something. She leaned forward. Freedom means the freedom to fail. It means making your own mistakes instead of following someone else's orders. That's scary, but it's also the only way to truly grow. And if we need help, then ask. The Terran Coalition will respond, but we won't do it for you. We'll help you do it yourselves. The session continued for hours. Chen answered questions about human history, human culture, human technology. She was honest about humanity's flaws and failures. She didn't present humans as perfect or superior, just as a species that had learned hard lessons and wanted to share those lessons. As the session finally ended, a young delegate approached Chen. She was barely more than a child, representing a small world that had just gained independence. Admiral Chen, I have a question that might seem strange. Ask it. What does humanity want, really? Every species wants something: resources, territory, power. What do humans want? Chen thought about that question. It was a good question, maybe the most important question. Do you know what humans do when they're not working or fighting? When they have free time? The young delegate shook her head. We explore. We create, we tell stories. We make art. We study the universe. We play with our children. We spend time with friends. We try new foods. We visit new places. We try to understand things we don't understand yet. Chen smiled. That's what we want. We want to explore. We want to learn. We want to create. We want to experience everything the universe has to offer, and we want everyone else to have that same opportunity. That's all. That's everything. The Empire tried to take that away from us. They wanted us to be subjects, following their rules, serving their purposes. We couldn't accept that. Not because we wanted power, but because we wanted freedom. Freedom to explore, freedom to learn, freedom to choose. The young delegate looked thoughtful. So when you say Terran space is off limits, you don't mean you're hostile. You mean you want to be left alone to do your exploring and learning? Exactly. We'll trade with anyone. We'll share knowledge with anyone. We'll help anyone who asks. But we won't be ruled by anyone. And we won't let anyone be ruled against their will if we can prevent it. Because you pack bond, Chen laughed. Yes, because we pack bond. With everyone, even with annoying young delegates who asked difficult questions. The delegate smiled. I think I understand now. The precursor's warning. They saw a species that would rather die than be caged. They knew that if anyone tried to cage you, you would fight until you were free or dead. And they knew that once you were free, you would try to free everyone else. That's a good interpretation, Chen agreed. Are there more warnings? Other things the precursors left about humanity? We don't know. We're still studying their sites, still learning their language. There might be more. What do you think they would say if they could speak to us now? Chen looked at the chamber, at the delegates from hundreds of worlds, all free to govern themselves, all trying to figure out how to build a better galaxy. I think they would say good luck, because building a free galaxy is harder than ruling an empire. But it's worth the effort. The delegate left and Chen found herself alone with Admiral Vrillana. That was well done, Vrillana said. You gave them hope without promising easy solutions. There are no easy solutions. Freedom is hard work. The empire lasted 15,000 years because we made it easy. We gave orders, people followed them. Simple. And it ended. Because eventually people want more than simplicity. They want meaning, purpose, self-determination. Vrillana nodded. I've been thinking about the precursors, about why they left warnings instead of destroying you when they had the chance. What's your theory? I think they saw something in humanity that they recognized. Maybe they were like you once, stubborn, persistent, refusing to give up. Maybe that's how they became advanced enough to seed life across the galaxy. And maybe they left the warnings because they knew what would happen if anyone tried to conquer you. They knew you would win or die trying. And they didn't want the galaxy to pay the price for that lesson. Chen considered that. It's a good theory. We may never know for sure. Does it matter? The lesson was learned regardless. Yes, it was. They stood together looking out at the galaxy through the station's massive windows. Stars filled the view, countless systems, countless possibilities. What will you do now? Verlana asked. You've helped rebuild. You've defended the weak. You've fulfilled your promises. What's next for humanity? Chen smiled. We explore. That's what we've always wanted to do. Now that we're not fighting for survival, we can finally do it properly. There are billions of stars out there. Countless worlds. Mysteries we can't even imagine yet. We're going to see them all. And if you encounter another empire, another threat, then we deal with it. But we hope we don't have to. We've had enough war, but you won't surrender. No, we won't surrender. That's not who we are. Verlana smiled slightly. The galaxy is learning that. They are not what they seem. Indeed. Chen returned to Earth a week later. The reconstruction was progressing. New cities were rising. The orbital stations were being rebuilt. Monuments to the dead stood in every major city, 3 billion names carved in stone. She visited one of those monuments, found the name she was looking for. Her parents, her brother, friends from childhood, so many names. A young officer approached her. Admiral Chen? I'm sorry to disturb you. It's fine. What is it? We've received a message from a system called Talos 9. They're facing aggression from a neighboring system. They're asking for help. Chen sighed. The work never ended. But that was okay. That was who humans were. Prepare a response team. Tell them we're coming. Yes, Admiral. As the officer left, Chen looked back at the monument, at all those names. All those people who had died so that humanity could remain free. We won't waste it, she said quietly. Your sacrifice meant something. The galaxy is free because of you, and we'll keep it free. She turned away from the monument and looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the Talos 9 system was waiting for help. And further beyond, countless other systems faced their own challenges. The Terran coalition had become what the precursors might have predicted. Not conquerors, not an empire, but protectors. Stubborn, persistent protectors who refused to let tyranny take root anywhere they could reach. Chen walked through the rebuilt streets of New Beijing.